Alright, guys. So, I'm thinking there has been a lot of misconceptions about this ruling. Okay. So, I'm thinking, you know, Legal Eagle should be able to, take a nuanced approach to this and not a biased one. Even though, like the thumbnail, right? He has on there, it says word effed. Okay. Now, hopefully, that's not going to be like the theme throughout the entire video. So let's go ahead and see if he can explain this, hopefully, better than a lot of other people have.
Bad you think it is? It's worse. Remember when Trump's lawyers argued that he could SEAL Team 6 as political rivals, and we all laughed because that's a preposterous thing for anyone to argue, and absolutely no serious person could possibly believe that the Constitution or the laws of this country would allow that to be the rule. Well, the Supreme Court just said, hold my beer while I assassinate my political rivals.
The president is entitled for total personal gain to use the trappings of his office. That's what you're trying to get us to hold.
Yes, the Supreme Court has effectively given law-breaking presidents, and we're not singling any one law-breaking president out or anything, could be any felonious president, almost absolute immunity from criminal prosecution. And where the court did not grant outright absolute immunity, it gave presumptive immunity and procedural protections that might as well have been absolute immunity. And while unofficial acts of the president still receive no immunity, the crap cherry on top of this crap sundae is that even though a president now has immunity from criminal prosecution for official acts as president, a prosecutor cannot even use official acts as evidence in a prosecution over unofficial acts.
But that was one part that I was holding on to, right? That was official acts as president. He's immune from that, but unofficial acts he is not. Regardless of what side you're on, right? There's one thing I think everyone should agree on, and that is balance of power. If you don't agree to that and you think that is, not what America is supposed to be all about, then I think you're probably in the wrong country. Okay? We don't want to have dictators, right? We don't need to have, any one person or any one side to rule over everything. Even if that side that you're on, right, gets that amount of power, you still should not be okay with it. And the reason why is just as easy as that one side gets all the power, that power could easily switch to the other side and go in the other direction. And both are just as bad. However, if we continue to have balance of power, which is what we've had for the longest time, any bad decisions one side might make, vice versa, that goes both ways. If someone, tries to pass a law, the other side's going to step up and say, hey, wait a minute, we can't do that because you're overlooking this aspect and that thing, and you're overlooking this, right? And that, again, it goes both ways. So one side keeps the other side in check, that side keeps the other side in check. So you have socialism and you have capitalism. Both are great things as long as they're not absolute, right? And it would be just as bad to go full capitalist or full socialist. It'd be just as bad. Now, what we have right now is a mixture of both, and that's a great thing. That's why we have the two-party system, right? We have the one side that advocates for, people that need benefits, people that need help. And we have the other side who mostly advocates for the business owners and, all that kind of stuff, right? We need those as well. We can't just blindly transfer funds taking away from, you know, the business owners and the wealthy and all that kind of stuff and just give it to the poor. We can't do that. The reason why and it's like so simple. The business owners, the top 1%, or however else you want to phrase it, those are the people keeping our country running. Like, we really need to understand this. Capitalism is not a bad thing. When you're able to go to any gas station and fill your car up with gas, you can thank capitalism for that. When you can go to a grocery store and pretty much get anything you need, you could thank capitalism for that. Now, there are negatives to this as well, right? Smaller businesses getting shut down. You could say the prices aren't as good or the quality's not as good. You could say all those things, but at the end of the day, you're still able to buy pretty much anything you need. Without capitalism, all those businesses that sells all those products that everyone needs, they all go out of business, right? So it's not going to work without capitalism. And if you go all capitalist and you like dismantle all social programs, one of the biggest upsets to that is there's going to be a lot of people, like, you think the homeless population is bad now. Let's go ahead and cut like everyone's benefits and see what happens then. That's going to be a lot of homeless people. That's going to be a lot of crime rates. Okay? Because I got news for you. Sleeping on the street or sleeping in jail, it's not a hard decision for me to comprehend, right? Jail is better. At least you have shelter, okay? And food. You get food in prison. So there's going to be a huge crime spike if we want to go that route. We can't do that. Also, all those people that are on those benefits, right? They are supporting businesses. They are receiving their benefits and they're using their benefits in the stores that you also shop at, right? And if they all lost their benefits, that's going to be a lot less people shopping at those stores. So those stores are going to take a hit. So I say all that just to say this. With both parties, there's good and there's bad. And if we allow one side or the other to reign supreme, it's just as bad as if we let the other side reign supreme.
Unofficial acts, the court did not grant outright absolute immunity. It gave presumptive immunity and procedural protections that might as well have been absolute immunity. And while unofficial...
So here's what I'm thinking, right? We still have a lot of people who directly work with the president, right? So you got like head of security, you got, I'm sure a lot of other people with a lot of power who work directly with the president and advise them on, this thing and that thing and whatever else. If we have a situation to where all those people who work directly with the president are like biased, it wouldn't actually report anything that they've done wrong, like that's when we would have a real problem. If not, then if a president actually said, let's go execute, one of my rivals because I think they might be, running in the next election, right? So let's go like take them out. I would really hope one of the generals or whoever it is, like head of security or something like that, would, figure out a way to prove that and then go ahead and start working on impeachment of that president. Okay? And that's the whole thing. Like, impeachment can still happen. That's just a matter of getting the votes and, getting it to the floor and making it happen. In which case, like, that's when they would probe the issue. Is this a official act or is it a unofficial act? Right? And I really think at the same time, you know, any time a president is going to make a life and death decision, it should be probed. It really should be investigated to make sure before and after that this was a necessary decision and it was the right decision, right? Because we have to remember the decisions our presidents make could impact other countries if they want to, retaliate against us, right? So, again, like, it's not a good idea to say a president can just make whatever decision he wants and he never gets questioned about it. That's not a good idea, and I'm still like hoping that's not actually what happened.
Official acts of the president still receive no immunity. The crap cherry on top of this crap sundae is that even though a president now has immunity from criminal prosecution for official acts as president, a prosecutor cannot even use official acts as evidence in a prosecution over unofficial acts, which makes prosecution of...
How does that make sense? Why would they need to use official acts as evidence to prove unofficial acts? Like, those two things are separate, right? So I'm not sure where Legal Eagle's trying to go with that, because that just doesn't track in my mind. And what I mean to say is, why is that a problem? If you're claiming something was an unofficial act, then you're going to have to prove that, right? And I think really what this boils down to is, like I said, the people who work directly with the president, those are the people who should be called to question, was this an official act or unofficial, right? And like I said, checks and balances, balance of power. Those things are crucial.
some unofficial acts virtually impossible. Whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, this is a terrible decision for democracy, possibly a top 5 worst Supreme Court decision of all time. Happy July 4th, everyone! But just how bad is it? Well, don't take my word for it. Justice Sotomayor says, quote, "The court effectively creates a law-free zone around the president, upsetting the status quo that has existed since the founding. This new official acts immunity now lies about like a loaded weapon for any president that wishes to place his own interests, his own political survival, or his own financial gain above the interests of the nation. The president of the United States..."
So, I think I might be starting to see where he's going with this, and I really don't think it's going to cut it. Okay. And I think I'm starting to see why everyone else is like freaking out about this. Because if he says, let's go assassinate a possible rival, right? Then he's going to say, oh, well, it's an official act. This is directly related to my position as president. Okay. The problem is there isn't going to be anyone, hopefully, that would come up and say, oh, yes, this was a necessary action. Okay. At this right here, the President of the United States is the most powerful person in the country and possibly the world. When he uses his official powers in any way under the majority's reasoning, I'm not exactly sure what that means. If you guys could help me out with that phrase, put it in the comments and let me know. He now will be insulated from criminal prosecution. Now, I'm not sure why this is a surprise, because it's always been this way. This is why we have impeachment, right, of a president. The first step is impeachment. Once a president is impeached, then they get opened up to a criminal investigation. So, as far as I'm aware, like, impeachment can still happen. And if a president gets impeached, right, then I think this clause no longer applies.
The most powerful person in the country, and possibly the world. When he uses his official powers in any way, under the majority's reasoning, he now will be insulated from criminal prosecution. Orders the Navy's SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival? Immune. Organizes a military coup to hold on to power? Immune. Takes a bribe in exchange for a pardon? Immune, 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 immune. Let the president violate the law. Let him exploit the trappings of his office for personal gain. Let him use his official power for evil ends. Because if he knew that he may one day face liability for breaking the law, he might not be as bold and fearless as we would like him to be.
And here's the thing, though. These aren't official acts. These are unofficial acts. And this right here might be the whole thing that people are so confused about, right? I don't know if in their ruling, if they clearly defined official and unofficial, right? Because that's really what needs to happen. Now, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but in my opinion, doing anything for your own personal interests, right, is an unofficial act. Doing anything for the interest of the country, in any capacity at all, if it is for, like, that would be the difference right there. Trying to eliminate a political rival, that's a personal interest. That is you trying to, have an easier time when it comes to election, to holding on to power, to all these other things. That's a personal interest, not interest of the country. So I think that right there is the difference. And I think that's why, like, all of these things are not official acts.
Removing people from office and commanding the military, we have no idea what might be considered a core power or not. But even those enumerated core powers are terrifying, because the court specifically said commanding the military. So if you take one thing away from this video, it's this. Because commanding the military is apparently a core presidential power, and use of core presidential power is absolutely immune from criminal prosecution, any use of the military by the president, including using the American military on American soil, is absolutely immune from criminal prosecution. And if you take two things away, it should be that the president can do anything related to the DOJ, create sham investigations, sham prosecutions, fabricate evidence. They can do any of that, and they are absolutely immune because that's a core function. And a few really good commentators put it this way. The office of the president...
Yeah, but that's, like, his opinion that that's a core function, right?
is like a gun. When you get elected president, you have an unfettered right to use that gun any way that you want to. Your motives and purposes for using that gun are completely irrelevant. You're the president, use the gun however you want. Criminal law does not apply to your use of that gun. And that is why multiple Supreme Court justices are concerned about a president SEAL Team 6ing their...
Like I said, I think this is the part where he's totally wrong. Right? So his understanding is, he has free will, free reign to conduct, in any capacity, get SEAL Team 6 to, take out a political rival and pretty much anything else he wants. So I really think even if a president wanted to do that, our Navy SEALs, our soldiers and everything else, like anyone he would ask, hopefully he wouldn't be able to find anyone that is so corrupt that they would not speak out against that. Because they should know United States citizens have constitutional rights. Okay? Doesn't matter who they are, we all have constitutional rights.
Duty of the judicial branch to do justice in criminal prosecutions. According to the majority, however, any intrusion on executive power is too much. When presumptive immunity is this conclusive, the majority's indecision as to whether official acts immunity must be absolute or whether instead presumptive immunity is sufficient hardly matters. Now, I've seen a few legal pundits say that this decision is no big deal because immunity only attaches absolutely for the exercise of core presidential powers, despite the fact that the military is almost certainly a core power and lets the president drone strike their rival. But it's okay because other official acts are only...
Yeah, but it seems like he would still have to justify that, right? I don't get that there's this much of a disconnect. Like, what about the advisors that's going to, like, obviously, speak to the president and work, like I said, directly with him, and they would be the ones to say, hey, wait a minute, if you, go ahead and conduct this act right here, like, that could possibly, open you up for investigation, right? So, like, we need to work together and see if maybe we can find another strategy. How is, like, that entire conversation all of a sudden just out the window with now, oh, well, the president doesn't have to answer to anybody, he just do whatever he wants? And it's like, I don't think so.
here is whether the president has the option to remove the attorney general by, say, poisoning him to death. Put another way, the issue here is not whether the president has exclusive removal power, but whether a generally applicable criminal law prohibiting murder can restrict how the president exercises that authority. And the implied answer in that footnote is that the president is free to poison any member of their staff or cabinet because they have authority to remove that person. They've got the power, so any means whatsoever would be an official act. And I'm not being history.
Yeah, I'm going to go back over that part again. Okay, guys, so I read through this a few more times, and right there at the end, I think is, a good, like, explanation here of what, is going on with this. So I'm going to read the very end of this, and then I'm going to explain at least what I think it means. While presidents may have the authority to decide to remove the Attorney General, for example, the question here is whether the president has the option to remove the Attorney General by, say, poisoning him to death. Put another way, the issue here is not whether the president has exclusive removal power, but whether a generally applicable criminal law prohibits murder can restrict how the president exercises that authority. So look, the key word here is generally. And even still, like, let's just imagine that the Attorney General is a terrorist, right? President discovers, some leaked documents and basically, spells out an entire plot that puts a lot of people in jeopardy, right? Should the president just have him assassinated? Of course not. Like, that's what we have investigations for. The president at that point should have an investigation started, and if the information looks credible, then that person should be locked up to, hopefully prevent any tragedies from happening, as long as there's enough, like I said, that looks credible, right? But that's the whole thing. It's like if you just go ahead and have that person executed, you could find out later on that that leaked information was all bogus, that it was just someone wanting to get rid of their political rival, right? So I don't think like this is a great example to use. Like that's what I'm kidding at. This is not a great example. Okay? Like we have a judicial system for a reason. And that's what should take place there, right? There are other, I think, better examples. If we're looking at like a hijacking, for example, right? If it looks like the plane is going to hit a place where there's going to be a lot of people, they're going to have the president and he's going to have the ability to make the call. Of course, depending on the situation and depending on what the advisors are telling him, here's the situation, here's where the plane is, here's what window of opportunity to shoot this plane down, before they get a chance to hurt a lot more people. This is about minimizing casualties. The president has the ability to make that call, and that will be his call to make. That I think is a much better, you know, situation to look at here, right? Because let's face it, that is murder. He is pulling the trigger and he's sentencing a lot of people to death. Okay. However, is that an official act? Of course it is. It is an official act. He is acting to save the lives of a lot of people. It would be incredibly tragic that, like, that would be, even on the table for something that might have to happen. Incredibly tragic, but at the same time, he has that authority, and hopefully he would make that determination based on the information he's getting from his advisors, right? And that's the whole thing again. Suppose, like, a president wants to go this route, right? I think my attorney general is a spy. I want to call up SEAL Team 6 and have them go and assassinate him. Hopefully, there would be advisors there to say, hey, wait a minute. The information you have there could be incorrect. I don't think that's a good way to go about this. I think we need to do an investigation first. If the information looks credible, then he needs to be locked up and he needs to, go through the process just like anybody else. He should still have the right to a fair trial. And just having him assassinated, obviously, he's not getting the chance to advocate for his innocence, right?
Exercises that authority. And the implied answer in that footnote is that the president is free to poison any member of their staff or cabinet.
But it's not. It's not. This is just an example, right? Because like it said, generally applicable law. Like, generally speaking, like, it would obviously be a crime to do that. I just don't think he's looking at this the right way. But of course, like, he is an actual attorney, so he knows a lot more than I do. But I also know how biases work. I know he, is biased against Trump. He does not like Trump at all. And could that play a role in the way that he's interpreting this? Of course it could be. Now, I also don't really watch a lot of other attorneys who are solely biased towards Trump, right? Because again, I think a lot of things that, Trump does wrong or Trump says the wrong thing or, someone brings up a good point against Trump or whatever else, they're obviously automatically going to shoot all that down. Trump's the best in the world. He's never done anything wrong. And it's just like, you are so biased, I cannot listen to you. Okay? But I'm going to make an exception here. I am going to watch, Viva Fry. Then there's a few others. I can't think of what their names are right now. But as I start looking, I will put some links to their channels in the description. And if you guys want to, go to their channels, watch some of their videos about this, put in the comments and let me know, are they, gonna be on the same page as I am right now? That's like, this is the way it's pretty much always been, and the Trump haters are just reading into this and saying, oh yeah, they're just saying president has, power to do whatever they want. I don't think so.
Be called to test, the category of presidential action that can be deemed unofficial is destined to be vanishingly small. So to help understand all of these distinctions, the great people over at Just Security put together this great chart. Starting from right to left, if there is official conduct, we have to ask, is it within the core constitutional authority? If it is, there's absolute immunity, no prosecution, and you can't use it as evidence. If it's not core constitutional authority, you have to ask, does it pose any danger of intrusion on the authority and functions of the executive branch? If it does, no prosecution, can't use it as evidence. If it doesn't pose any dangers of intrusion on the authority and functions of the executive branch, then there is no immunity and you can use it as evidence.
I would seriously question the legitimacy of this chart right here. That's what I would start with. So I think we're going to leave it here. All right, that's it for now, y'all.